The maestro is back. I am, of course, referring to Juan Tamariz, who has been a legend in the world of magic for many decades now. Some of you know him best for his stacked deck work, which was published in Mnemonica, and now, after over a decade, Flamenco. In this episode of Erudite Magic, we're going to dive into this book, take a look at its pages, decide whether or not it's for you by discussing the difficulty, the types of things that you'll learn, what kind of props you'll need, or what you can expect from this book. So if you're ready, let's go. As we get into this, I want to make sure that you know who Juan Tamariz is. Of course, if you've been in magic for a long time, then there's no doubt to me that you've seen his name. In fact, many magicians widely regard him as the greatest close-up card magician still alive. And if you're into theory or even magic books, then he's published many works that you've no doubt come across or at least seen the names. I mentioned two of them already, which have to do with tricks, but he's also well known for his theory books like The Magic Way, The Magic Rainbow, and The 5 Points in Magic. Other notable titles include Verbal Magic, and then finally, the Letters from Juan series published by Penguin Magic over the last couple of years. Now, it's not really a big secret that I haven't always loved all of the Juan Tamariz books. I thought that the first Letters from Juan was expensive for what you got, and many of his theory books, while they have a lot of great nuggets of information, are also very odd at times. But I have to say, out of a sneak peek for this discussion, I thoroughly enjoyed this book. Let's talk a little bit about why that is. First of all, is the physical qualities of the book itself. It is part of the Hermetic Press line of books, which if you don't know, Penguin Magic purchased that line of books a few years ago. They've been republishing a number of titles, and I've reviewed several of those. However, this book is brand new, and the magic world has been waiting over 10 years for it. The nice thing is that it matches the style of previous Hermetic Press books. Very nicely done, cloth-bound hardback book with a slip cover, if you're into that sort of thing. You have the sheet music in the front pages and back pages, which mirror some of the other Bewitched music series books. And of course, like all of the best Hermetic Press books, it was written by Stephen Minch. There are over 260 pages, and within these pages, you'll find 19 different routines and a rather large handful of techniques that you can use to improve your close-up card magic. The illustrations are actually done by two different people, Margot Nicolo and the venerable Tony Dunn. Part of the reason that there are two illustrators for the book is because of how long it took Stephen Minch to actually finish writing the book. The original illustrations were done by Marga, but as time went on, there was a change in the different tricks that were going in. Some were pulled out, some were put in, and they needed someone else to help finish it, so they enlisted the help of Tony. The good news is the illustration style stayed consistent, and Tony did his best to mirror the style that Marga had started. Another thing that I really liked about this is the nature of the material. You're getting a lot of different kinds of things. Of course, most of this, knowing Juan Tamariz, no surprise here, is going to be card magic. But he does include a few other things, coin magic. He also teaches a few of his pet color-changing knife moves, and I've never seen anything quite like some of them, including one where you're spinning the knife over your fingers and still only displaying one side to your participants. As far as the techniques that he teaches, there are ways to get into a top palm, even when people are burning your hands, several different variants of false shuffles, including some table shuffles, as well as a Hindu-style shuffle that keeps the deck intact. There's some cool false cuts, and he teaches you how he glimpses 1, 2, or even more cards. What about the tricks? I thought that there was a great variety here, and they're all extremely well written up. None of them feel like there were any shortcuts taken in the descriptions. All of them are meaty, well illustrated where necessary, and these are definitely items that Juan has performed over a lifetime. There are things like a multiple rising card done with no gimmicks. He also teaches versions later on in the book that do use a gimmick and has some clever ideas of how you might apply that gimmick outside the traditional rising card approach. There's an oil and water routine, out of this world, a full deck disappearance that Juan uses to close out his shows when he's only doing one set, and even an odd sort of packet trick that is supposedly one of Juan's favorite pieces that uses mermaids and centaurs. It's a very topical and odd packet trick. You'll have to read it to understand. You are given the templates for these cards because he knows that it would be impossible for most people to have some artwork commissioned. So the publisher has included a sheet that you can photocopy and play around with this packet trick if your heart desires. There's a lot more to this, but the point that I want you to get is that there's a pretty good variety. And when we talk about the write-ups for a second, this differs from a lot of magic books where they specifically set out the effect and the props you'll need and then the method. It still follows that similar pattern, but without those exact titles. At the beginning, Stephen Minch is almost always going to give you the cheerleader view of this trick, where he's seen Juan perform it, some details about nights in Spain or other places, and how the audience felt about this work. So you come to realize that these are polished pieces and that audiences actually love to see them, which is always a nice bit of encouragement. After that initial pitch to help sell you on the effect, he does describe what the effect is from the eyes of the audience in typically one paragraph so that you're going to understand what this looks like and whether or not it might play for you. He immediately launches into how to do this, including any kind of props or setup that you'll need. And while we're discussing it, most of this material is going to be done with just a standard deck. There are some other things that you'll need if you want to perform everything, but I think that most magicians will have these props on hand, so I'm not going to spoil anything by telling you what else you might need. As I already indicated, everything is well described. You'll learn the sleights that you need to know, and the footnotes are good, pointing you to other resources that you may want to explore as you dive deeper into these routines. Before we get into what maybe I didn't like about this book, let me tell you about the sponsor of this week's video, Don's Magic and Books. Don will be stocking this book very shortly. The publisher, Penguin Magic, wanted to offer this out first before they offered it out to other dealers, but very soon you'll be able to purchase Flamenco straight from Don's Magic and Books. But while you're waiting on that, I recommend that you check out his website for all of the other great deals that he has there, especially on books that are rare or out of print. This is where Don excels. He continues to get in new inventory that magicians like you have been looking for a while, and he always offers them out at terrific prices. Combine that with his fast and free shipping if you meet minimum thresholds in the United States, and that explains why you'll want to shop with Don's Magic and Books frequently. Because of the nature of his business, he's constantly moving through inventory, getting things in and out, so check back early and often to score a great deal on a book that you've been looking for. Thanks again, Don, for sponsoring this week's episode of Erudite Magic. What about the things that I didn't care for in this book? Honestly, there wasn't a whole lot. I didn't experience any major frustrations reading through this book, and as you know, I have read it from cover to cover. You are getting Juan Tamariz's presentations for a lot of these effects, and as an older magician, there are certain things that he does or recommends. For example, offering a female participant to check his rear pocket for a deck that isn't there. None of this is in poor taste. I'm merely pointing this out because, like any good magic, you're going to have to come up with your own spin or presentation on this. You're getting Juan's, which works for him, his character, this larger-than-life person that we've known for many decades. The magic should work in pretty much anyone's hands, but hopefully we won't have a bunch of people running around copying Juan saying, shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. The only other slight disappointment on this relates to the value proposition. The book is $100, which feels really, really pricey for a book like this. For example, just in the last 2 years, Hermetic Press reprinted the Barry Richardson trilogy, and each of those can be had for around $70. I feel like each one of those books has way more magic in it for less money. While I'm not complaining, I don't feel like this was a bad deal, and I did pay for this copy of the book. I think that this was a stretch because of who's writing the book and how long people have been waiting for it. I would love to have seen this book come in at that $70 to $75 range rather than the $100 that it is right now. That being said, I still got value out of it, but because of the higher price, I'm going to have to give this a 6 out of 10 on the value scale. Let's quickly address some of the other measurements that I typically include here. Practicality, I'm going to give this a 10 out of 10. It's pretty clear to me that Juan Tamariz has performed all of these pieces in one aspect or another. And as far as the difficulty for the average performer, I think if you're an intermediate card magician, you're not really going to have any trouble working on this material and getting it into performance-ready conditions. Nothing's too difficult, and in fact, there are some tricks that are basically self-working. Everything else, I think you'll put in a few hours of practice and you'll be on your way. As far as the artistic merit, I think it's a beautiful book. I love the fact that it matches a lot of the other Hermetic Press books in its style, and all the illustrations are tastefully done. There isn't any color, everything's in black and white, but it also has this musical theme to it, which also makes it kind of fun to read. Therefore, I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. Overall, I think that this book deserves to be on your shelf. I think if you're a serious student of magic and you want to learn from one of the greats like Juan Tamariz, then this book is definitely going to help you out there. Throughout the text, I noticed there were a lot of little lessons, little nuggets of wisdom that were interspersed. So if you want to be one of the best, then I think it pays to learn from one of the best. If you want to learn more about what it means to follow a specific magic creator and let them mentor you, then check out this video I did for you. As always, my friend, appreciate you watching, and until next time, keep reading. If only I could pull off that hair and hat.